Welcome to O-Talkin' with Dave. Put your hands together for the pastor of positivity whose glass is always at least half full. Here's Dave.
Hey, how we doing out there? I hope you're great. We're top shelf here. That's how we like to stay. We try. So today we're going to talk about a concept that, I don't know, it's negative. It really is. However, it can lead to a positive in a negative situation. And so we're gonna go through it. I hate to just come right out with negatives. There's enough negativity out there. However, the topic is controlled failure. And I think it's important to talk about it, the failure part, and then how to control it. It's necessary, and the main reason is you're going to fail. You are going to fail. Life is going to hand it to you in some way. It can be big things. It can be small things. It can be a string of things. It can be once every now and then. But the fact is 100% of us are going to face loss. It's going to happen. It could be a job. It could be your career. It could be a relationship. It could be a health situation. It could be a loss of a loved one. There's all different kinds of setbacks. And we're going to call it failure. But it's a setback. It's when you didn't succeed at something. Life handed you a loss of some kind. And different people will look at failure in different ways. One person may think, well, that wasn't really a failure, that was just this. And another person may be more competitive. It may have meant more to them. And, oh no, that's a failure. It's guaranteed. But it's not final. Failure is not final. Or it doesn't have to be. So just a few statistics here around grounding ourselves with failure. 40% of Americans are going to be laid off or fired at least once in their career. Now, when I first read that, I'm thinking, okay, that number seems low, but I've got COVID in my mind. I still do. I'm scarred, man. That was what, six years ago now when all that started? However, 40%, you're going to get laid off or fired at least once. I'm not going to give you silver linings right now. We'll talk about that in a minute. 50% of marriages end in divorce. Now, we can talk about how that 50 is made up. It was higher than that. And I think it's actually a little lower than 50 when you look at the number of people who, a lot of these people are serial marriers. See, I'm trying to help the stats again. Stop it, David. 50% of marriages end in divorce. That's 1 out of 2. 1 in 2 adults are going to deal with cancer in their lifetime, either directly or through a loved one. And if a loved one has cancer and however, all those things that can happen from it, that's a setback to you too. Oh, yeah. So it affects you. 1 in 2. And one that I don't like that much, but 100% of us are going to face death. You don't get out of this thing alive. And I'm not talking spiritual and the second coming and all of that stuff. But think about it. Not only death of yourself, you don't really, when you die, it's over. However, death is around you. And that can be a huge setback in your life. I've had it recently. And you look at it differently. Some people are devastated by it. And others can see how in some way be thankful for the time you had with them or whatever that would be. But 100% of us are going to face that in some way. So, failure isn't rare. It's guaranteed. It's going to happen. The only question is, will it be chaotic or controlled? And that control is what I want to talk about. Now, control has a bad rap. And most people behind control, it's control freak. Controlling, that's a negative. They're so controlling. There are people out there who, I don't know, they thrive on being controlled because then they don't have to answer to it. Okay, that's not the control I'm talking about. I'm talking about, let's use the analogy of an airbag. Okay, you're in a car, it's got airbags. You're probably wearing a seat belt. So you got a seat belt and an airbag. Why do you wear seatbelts? Full disclosure, I was not a big seatbelt guy. And what made me start wearing my seatbelt is I got a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt. So I'm like, oh, I'll put that on. I'll click that mother in there. Okay? But think about it. If you're in a car crash, that seatbelt can possibly save your life. All right? You still have an airbag. So we're going to talk about that airbag. It doesn't keep you from crashing. You're still going to crash. You may destroy your car. But hopefully you won't shatter you. Who gets in a car and hits the road and thinks, all right, I'm going to get in a crash? No, nobody does that. Hopefully nobody does that. You know what? We like crashes for that's why I watch NASCAR. We want to see a wreck. We want to see all that. But no, even those guys, they don't get in there with the intention and the foresight to think, I'm going to crash. Okay? So you need to control what if I do. And that's what the airbag does. It's a belt and suspenders thing if you're wearing a seat belt, but it keeps from shattering you. You don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know how bad it's going to be. It is a precaution. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about controlled failure in our lives. So let's talk about a few things around preparation. People who doesn't prepare is doomed to reap the consequences of that. So let's talk broadly. 57% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. 57%, less than $1,000. Now that I don't know the demographic on that. That could be adults. It could be people over a certain age. I don't know. But 57% don't have $1,000 in savings. 70% of adults have no advance directive for medical decisions. I know you're thinking that. 70% don't. Okay, that's 30% do, and that's probably older people. And it's necessary. My mother and my father had one, and it helped in a bad situation. Okay, let me ask you this. When are you going to get sick and need it? When is something going to happen and you're not prepared? You know what an advance directive is? It's just what you want should something happen. And I get it. We're talking about negative things. However, we're talking about negative things before they possibly happen, so we don't have to make those decisions then when it's crazy. Everybody should. A will. An advance directive. My sister was power of attorney because she lived closest to my parents, and they were to the point where they couldn't make good decisions for themselves. We thought ahead, and I'm not bragging on us. I'm bragging on them. They did it. So when we say advance directive, don't think in the end times. We are all subject to end times, no matter how old you are. Come on. Giddy up. Let me take a second. This is not going to be so negative the whole time. I got good news for you. Okay? 1 in 3 workers admit they have no backup plan if they lose their job. 1 in 3. I don't know what I think about that. But no backup plan. Hey, I'm all in on this. Ooh, that's dangerous. And a backup plan doesn't mean you're on LinkedIn or looking for jobs constantly just in case, because that's going to affect your current job. However, there are things you can do so that if something happens, boom, it triggers a plan. To have no plan, then you're going to spend some time in chaos instead of control. Most people prepare more for a vacation than they do for the loss of a job or loss of a spouse or a health crisis. Guilty. Oh, I love planning for a vacation. The wonderful thing about planning for a vacation is you find it. You think what you may want to do. You pick it out. Oh, this is great. You decide on a spot. All right. Now that anticipation for it. It's wonderful. It's a positive thing. Imagine if we had the foresight to put anything in place for what if I lost my job? What if something happened to my spouse? What if my spouse would have left me? What if I have a health scare? What if my spouse has a health scare? What if someone dear to me? Most of this talk, though, is about you controlling your failure. Okay, I know we have empathy. We care about other people. We're not a selfish pud. However, let's take care of me. So that's how I'm going to phrase this, because most people don't prepare. I grew up the golden boy. I really did. And a lot of people, I guess they don't like me for it, but I not only got away with so much. That's why I never complained when I got a whipping for something I didn't do. Okay, that's a makeup. That's what, I don't know. I've always been, I don't believe in luck, but I just never quit and always went for it. And most of the time, it worked out. Well, that's the way a lot of people live, me included to some degree. They think this is the kind of stuff that happens to other people. That happens to other people. You see the identity theft, that happens to other people. Somebody breaking in your house, that happens to other people. Somebody stealing your truck, that happens to other people. All of that happened to me. Remember I got my truck stolen on Christmas Day? But all that stuff, when you think happens to other people, it doesn't happen to me, that is dangerous. And we got an O-Talk coming up on that. So that's why I want you to think about this for you. You need to prepare for impact of these things. And if they don't happen, fantastic. Gravy. But there are lessons all around. Things happen to other people. And we'll get to some how-to in a second. But the sad thing is, most people don't prepare. So control failure, it's not about, again, it's like the airbag. It's not avoiding the hit, but it's about cushioning the blow, like the airbags. Car crashes, you don't shatter. So let's talk about 3 phases of preparation. So the 3 phases, we're going to say it's before the storm, during the storm, and after the storm. And the storm is the setback, the failure, the crisis. So the main thing is the preparation is not only before, but it's during and after, because you're learning. We'll get to that when we get to the aftermath. But in preparing, you got to take care of the mental side of things. You just acknowledge that life includes endings. It includes endings. And so think about that. And if you got a little piece of paper, jot something down for me. Life includes endings. So what ending do you fear most? What would that be? Is it your death? Is it a financial problem? Is it work related? Is it relationship related? It can be any of those things. Those are mainly the 4 categories that the people have a challenge with. Health, finances, relationships, and work. And the work part's not finances. It is feeling useful, feeling valuable, contributing. So that's usually it. But you can get more granular with this. Man, if this happened, I'd be screwed in some way. And I fear that. Write it down. It's going to be important that you write that down, because that's how we prepare. That's how we prepare. And then there's some practical things that we can do. Save some money. I know a lot of you are, man, I'm living paycheck to paycheck right now. Okay. But there are ways to save money. Ideally, I think Dave Ramsey says 3 to 6 months for emergency fund. Yeah, okay. You can't do that all at once necessarily, but you can do something. And when you do something, it makes you feel better. It makes you feel a little more secure. It's a little bit of padding. It is. And we'll talk more on that. But also you need to have some of the legal basics. Have a will. Something happens to me. Where do I want my stuff to go? And don't think, oh, somebody will take care of that. Or there's someone who knows. I've told them. Write something down. You can go online and get a real will done. My goodness, ChatGPT will do a will for you, and you just go and get it notarized. It's legal. Take 15 minutes out of your day and knock that out. I hear it all. I don't have a lot. All I've got's this. All I've got's that. Tell it where to go. And not for yourself. You're going to be gone. for the people you want it to go to. Because something happens to you, they're in chaos. They probably didn't prepare either. And what a cushion that will be for them. We talked about the power of attorney or advance directive and all that. Just do it. Write it down. Send it to somebody in an email, if nothing else. And I know they'll get that and think, what in the world's wrong with Dave? You trying to tell me something? It's just a little cushion that you don't have to think about later. And in relation to that, just practical things. Keep your relationships alive. Don't wait until you need people to nurture that relationship. Now, I know this is a weird place to put it in. We're talking about failing. We're talking about tough stuff. Your relationships are the most important thing in your life because you're going to need them. You need them now. And they need you. Having positive people you can count on, somebody that's got your back, may be that mental and practical cushion you need when failure comes. I've had a couple of setbacks lately, and it is incredible how supported I feel. People calling from out of nowhere. I got a text the other day, but I hadn't talked to this guy in so long. And we were reminiscing. I haven't talked to him. We were texting. And that alone, if I had not kept that relationship alive, or I'm not going to take credit for it, if that relationship hadn't sustained itself to some degree, I wouldn't have gotten that. And the blow would have had less cushion. So keep those alive. When you think about somebody, text them. When something happens that brings a memory, hit them up. I say, I saw this and I thought of you. Remember the time? Boom. It's fantastic. And then keep in your mind, when we talk about preparing before the storm, just hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. Preparation is. Preparation. And there's things you can do. Go to that list. Here are the things that I'm afraid might happen. What can I do to prepare? Not to eliminate them, not to ensure they don't, but in case they do, I'm not in chaos. I can have some sort of control. Okay? Let's talk about during the storm. 2 questions when it hits. Whatever it hits. 1 question. What do I control? Not what can I take control? No, what do I control? And what do I need help with? What do I need help with? Who I'm going to ask. And see, that goes back to the relationships. There are people not wanting you to go through failure or a bad time. They want you to ask for help. I can't tell you how many times I have not asked for help. I have not asked for help. I've just gritted through it, got through it, sucked it up, and for whatever reason, ego, independence, embarrassment, whatever. People, and especially if you help other people a lot, people love to help other people. It's one of the most endearing qualities of a human being. So when you do this, and you're in the throes of this horrible thing that's happened, because it's a failure, what do I control and who do I need? What do I need help with? Under that is, okay, here's where I need help. Okay, who can I call? Or you've got these relationships, you may be thinking, who has gone through this before? Like, ice cream guy's coming by right now. I need some help with that. It's all I can do, not to run out with and they're not a quarter anymore. You're going to spend $5 with the ice cream guy. Anyway, what do I control? What do I need help with? You go back to that circle of friends because you've already thought about them. You've already got a list. Okay, this has happened. Who's been through this before? And what kind of call would that be? Yeah. Hey, Bob, I just want you to know this has happened. I know you went through this yourself, didn't you? Man, can we get a cup of coffee and talk about it? I could probably use your counsel or some advice or form a strategy or something like that. And see, if you've got a close relationship with somebody, you lived through it with them. So you already know. And part of that you can put into play. but you still need to identify, what do I need help with? You can make adjustments as you go. You're not putting stuff in stone. A career plan changes. A medical plan changes. Financial pivots need to happen depending on your age and stuff. Sometimes you're the counselor. Sometimes you need counsel. And counsel can be advice on something technical, or it can just be a good ear for somebody you can go and be vulnerable with. It's so important. And the thing is, during the storm, because that's what we're talking about here, keep your rituals, the small rituals. And they're not that small, really, but they're things that are necessary and you do. Sleep, exercise, the conversations. These are the things that will anchor you and not hold you down, the things you can depend on. We'll call them cornerstones. Sleep and exercise, necessary for your mental and physical health. The conversation part is because so many times when they're in the throes of the storm, they just seclude themselves for whatever reason. And let me think about this. I got to figure this out. All right, what can you control and what do you need help with? Very important. So we've talked about before the storm. We talked about during the storm. Now the aftermath. All right. Now, sometimes that is a blurred line. Is it really over? Is this a process? Is it an ongoing thing? Depending on what it is. If it's a health crisis, if you lost your job, if your marriage is over, if your dog died, or whatever's happening. In the aftermath, you need to pause for the cause, grief, shock, or anger, they're not only natural, they are necessary in the occasion. Don't skip them. If you skip one, then it's going to come back and grab you and get your attention and say, hey, forgot about me, buddy. And that can be another setback or another failure. So pause. If it's grief, deal with it. Sometimes you have to pull it aside. Sometimes several things happen at once. This happened while you were grieving. Should have been grieving a loved one or grieving another loss. It all happened at once. You need to separate them. Take a minute. This happened. Deal with it. Maybe, okay, that's the grief. Shock happened here. So, what? What the heck was that about? Deal with it. And I'm so pissed. Maybe a pity party. Okay, deal with it. Give it its time. Absolutely. And then lean on your support people that we've talked about in every step. Now because maybe you have a financial cushion, or maybe you've got some people who have been through this before, or all these other things. Lean on them. Almost every O-Talk has the importance of a strong circle. The aftermath is so important because the aftermath is the new beginning. Okay? There is a question that it will show a degree. It's a degree of maternity. No, it's not. It's a degree of maturity and also an indicator that it is in the aftermath. When you can ask yourself this question, and write this one down. When you're reflecting on what's happened, ask yourself, what did this failure teach me that I couldn't have learned otherwise? What did this failure teach me that I couldn't have learned otherwise? It's not being grateful for it, but that is a silver lining there. Wow, I learned a valuable lesson. And I would not have learned that if this hadn't happened to me. That is part of healing. We talked about scars. Yeah, scars don't occur until the wound is healed. All right. I'm not going to be defined by my scars, but I am not going to waste pain either. This lesson I've learned that I would not have if this hadn't happened to me. So that is the end is also a beginning in disguise. That sounds cliche, but it is, because the aftermath is now can I plan? How do I control future failures from what I've learned. Failure is inevitable, but surviving and even thriving after a failure, it comes from preparation. Again, airbags don't stop the accident, but they keep the accident from stopping you. All right? So let's talk about the 5 cornerstones or anchors. Anchors in a good way in controlled failure. That mental readiness, it's so important. It's accepting that, hey, endings come. Some of the practical ways it is done, like the Navy SEALs. Their training, they call it stress inoculation. So they expose themselves to controlled chaos so they don't freeze when it happens in combat. In sports, you have 2-minute drills. You practice in football. You practice going for 2. You practice all this stuff so that if you have to use it, and you may not want to, but you're probably going to have to at some point, an onside kick. How often do you do that? You practice it every time so that in the chaos of the game, you don't freeze. These Navy SEALs, they know bad things are going to happen, but knowledge and experience handling them, it helps reduce the panic at the time. They do all sorts of, they tie them up, their hands behind their back and their feet together and push them in a pool. And if they struggle and try to panic, they're going to drown. But they learn, hey, no, I can sink to the bottom and push myself up and get a breath and then go back while I'm thinking, okay, what do I need to do first? How I get through this? But they've got a plan. They don't panic. People who look at what-if scenarios, and that's what preparation for controlled failure is. It's just, what if I lose my job? You know what? My dad had kidney stones regularly. And I said, okay, they're hereditary to some degree and blah, blah, blah. What if that happens? Family crisis of some sort. What if? Not being negative, not being morbid, but thinking. It's almost that list that we talked about earlier of things you fear. Another good trigger is when somebody else is going through something that, you don't really fear that, but okay, what if that happened to me? What would I do? How would I react when it hit? Yeah. But what if scenarios are fantastic. You develop contingency plans. In negotiating, you do it all the time. What if they say this? When I say this, what if they do that? What if this happens? But a lot of times we're really good at that in business, but we don't take the time to do it in our personal lives because we think, that doesn't happen to me. Yeah, who's going to steal my truck on Christmas when I'm out with the family? I know what to do now. I parked right by a camera too. We got him. So the thing is, the result of this, whether it's stress inoculation or what if scenarios, you'll have lower anxiety and faster recovery. You feel like, okay, I got a plan. May not be a good plan, but you got a plan. Failure feels less like a surprise attack when you've already imagined it and rehearsed in some way your response. So mental readiness, so important in controlling failure. Also, just the financial side. Can you ever have enough? I don't know. Different people have different tolerances toward financial, how much is enough. After the 2008-2009 real estate crash, households with less than 3 months expenses saved were 60% less likely to lose homes or have to file bankruptcy. I know I lived in Orange County at the time, and there were a lot of people doing interest only. They would get that variable interest rate. They go and they pay interest only, try to flip the house and make some money. And it worked for a while, but then greed slipped in, and then boom, the crash hit. I know a lot of people who lost all their houses and their cars and their wives and their whatever because they didn't have a contingency plan. They were type A personality, let's go. They didn't plan. Yeah. I know another guy, though. He lost his job, but he had a little bit of a nest egg or some finances he could call on, and he didn't panic. I got enough. I got a cushion. And that cushion may not be long. It could be. I don't know. But this guy pivoted, and he had a hobby. He did woodworking, And he thought, okay, I'm going to pivot. I got this much time. And his therapy was going and doing this stuff. Well, in the meantime, this stuff was piling up, all these little trinkets he was making. He started giving them away. And then people started buying them. And it turned into a business and a different career, totally separate, because he didn't panic. So a little bit of preparation financially, whether it's a side hustle or doing several jobs at once, or I don't know what it could be, think about your options. And then when something happens, when you think about the what ifs, you don't have to panic so much. It lets you think clearly and act a little more wisely in avoiding desperate decisions, which I think we can all agree is better. Money doesn't solve grief or stress, but it buys you some time. Even if your failure is not related to money, having something set aside, if the worst happens, makes it so that it can buy you some time for grief or for counseling or for time with people that you need to spend time with. It's very important. It's very important. So you've got the mental side, you got the financial side. Let's just talk about the physical side. All right? It's proven. Cancer patients with a higher baseline of fitness, just a higher baseline than most, they recover faster and tolerate treatment better. And this is not just cancer, but this is an example. I know I've got some good friends that have several bouts with cancer. Man, it wrecks your body. And I know some of them, if they hadn't been in what we would call decent shape, don't know if they'd made it, but they would not have made it as well or the recovery as well. And a lot of times you think about this, you get cancer, just take me. What about your family? In a way, it's kind of like the financial side. Get out, get some sleep, take a walk, be somewhat fit for your age. And that's almost like the finances. That's like putting some in a savings account just in case this happens. I'm going to be in better shape to take it. And there's older people. I know a guy, a really good friend, an older guy. He was constantly running and playing golf. And he was probably the most physically fit older person I've ever known. He had a heart attack. So you don't expect that. Whoa. Because that's what he was fighting against. I don't want to have a heart attack. So he was doing some controlled failure when doing that. But they said his recovery was half the time of a normal situation because his body was resilient, because that is controlled failure right there. He was doing it to keep from having it. But when it happened, he had that physical savings account. Yeah. So you got better odds if it is a health crisis. Even if it's someone else's that you have to endure that, you may have to go a while without the sleep that you need, or the stress, everything involved in someone else's crisis that impacts you. Training your body it's training for every unknown future battle. And I'm not talking about bodybuilding or triathlons or any of that stuff. Stay active. Keep going. Little things. If you're going to the second floor, take the stairs. Walk somewhere instead of whatever it is. I don't know your neighborhood, but I try to walk at least 10,000 steps a day. But if I have time, I know that I've got a little route that I take. It's 5,000 steps. All right, I'll do it twice. I may do that 2 times a day. Now I'm at 20,000 steps, and I feel so proud of myself. And I am not physically fit. However, I am putting a little bit in a physical savings account, and I will continue to do that. Training your body is training for every unknown future battle. It's controlled failure. All right, let's get back to our friends and relationships. And I've experienced this with my dad in the last year or two. Widows and widowers who have strong social networks prior to loss of their significant other, they have much lower depression rates and faster adjustment after that happens. And just think about it. It can be a church. It can be just a group of friends or neighbors. My dad used to go to a breakfast with people. He'd been retired forever, 30 years. He would go to a breakfast once a week. He looked forward to that so much. And it would, something to look forward to is so important. And if you have those, okay, it's that circle of friends. It's relationships that helps you get through it. Yeah, it happens constantly. So build those, stay in touch. Don't only keep them alive, keep them thriving. Because, and I'll tell you the sad part, my dad outlived all his friends. He really did. And it gets to the point to where he had dementia, and he was always just a great listener, funny, and all that. But sometimes he didn't remember people, and sometimes he'd tell the same story 2 or 3 times. So not only were his friends dying, sometimes it was awkward moments, and people quit coming by. And I saw as his social engagement declined, so did some other things. His mental health, his physical health. Yeah. So keep that together. If you want to do it for selfish reasons, that's fine. The beautiful thing about keeping those relationships alive, they're going to help you. It's controlled failure in many ways. However, they're benefiting from your presence. Other people are keeping it alive too, and you're part of their lifeline. So many times that support, that engagement, it's the difference between isolation or resilience. So don't wait until you're drowning to learn how to swim. This is what I'm saying here. Relationships are lifelines that you build before the crisis. So important. And then the last one I'll share, it talks about, okay, there's a purpose here. There's something beyond this loss. This loss does not define me. What's next? Some people would say, what is your why? And I don't believe, you may just have one why, but I don't believe it's just a why. I think it's a what's next. Or what else? Yeah. Even the Holocaust survivors, the people who didn't see that as the end, were more resilient. A lot of them, we know the story. But there's a lot of like World War II survivors, people like that. It's what they not only aspired to, but what they lived for, to see that one more time. No, I'm going to do this. My grandfather, he was a tobacco farmer, got his machinist certificate at a trade school, moved the family, worked at Ford Motor Company in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, Lister Hill to be exact, made a life. When he got through, he moved back to the farm, cleared it off, and started farming again because that was his why. He had a lot of whys. That's what he wanted. That's his what's next. And it drove him when other things told him, stop. He had many failures, controlled and otherwise. He still kept his eye on what's next and didn't give up. Didn't give up. Yeah, my buddy who got canned and started the woodworking business. Unbelievable. Hey, yeah, he failed. He failed in that job. Failure was not final with him because he had more going on. He had some resilience. Good things happen to good people eventually. He wore the white hat. All of these O-Talks mean something, I promise you. So new beginnings born are a lot of times from loss. You can't get there from here. Something's got to happen. Something's got to get your attention. Something's got to get out of the way. Why? What's next? It's so important. Now, the end of one thing, and there's so many cliches, but the end of one thing is the opening act for the next. If you give yourself something to step into, sometimes you have to step through something, but that other foot's got to go down. Yeah. What does it look like? Controlled failure, financial preparation. What is your situation? Where are you? Where are you? If you're in a relationship, what do you control finance-wise? How is that vulnerable? Is this one of your fears? What about your credit? Somebody can steal your identity. All right. There's a monitoring system. There's stuff that can alert you. Where's your money going? All of that stuff. You can get a clear picture of what's going on. Your budget, are you staying within it? Do you have one? How much are you spending at Walmart, CVS, and PetSmart every month? You need to know that because you can't get there if you don't know where here is. Those are things you can do. It's controlled failure. We'll all have financial challenges from time to time, but don't let them be necessarily 100% a surprise. And put that out there as something to prepare for. Instead of drowning in unknowns, you know what you have. You know what you need. And you know how long you can survive. And think about it individually. Don't always think about something, you and a couple, you and a partner, think about you. What are you doing? What are you generating? What do you have? What are the laws? I've moved around a lot. I've lived in a bunch of different states, bought a bunch of different houses. Sometimes just a basic knowledge of laws. What's with the speed limits? The local dynamic of what's going on. But a lot of times there are things that, I know when we moved to California, things were a lot different. And sometimes you have to break the rules to learn the rules. That's the circle of friends too. When something happens, they may bring something up that you should have already known. Okay, what else do I not know? Be very curious about things that impact you, especially on that list of fears that we talked about earlier. And you need that support network. You may have your marriage, you may have your significant other, you may have your tight circle of friends too. It's always good to reach out. I'm not saying trust them. Don't let them babysit your kid or watch your dog. However, that support network can be that tight circle. It can be a larger circle. I talk about the circle of influence. All of those things. You all have one. Understand the value of that circle. And you've got to be prepared for people let you down. People that you trusted betray you. Be prepared for that. Don't crumble. You don't live in suspicion, but also understand that forever is a long time. And a lot of people can meditate, they can journal, all these different things. And I've talked about cutting toxic people out of your life. That is tough to do because sometimes you're betrayed by the most precious person that would never do that. And many times you would allow them to stay in the circle because of familiarity. I can't live without this person. All right. Controlled failure is how can I stand on my own 2 feet no matter what happens? Yeah. In a marriage, outside of a marriage, in a relationship, outside of that, in this job, outside of that job. I know I did a talk one time. I had a guy ask me, he was a pastor at a church I was going to, and he asked me if I'd speak at his small group. And I said, of course. I was flattered. I didn't know he knew me that well. So I get there, and there are 12 pastors there. They knew what I talked about and some of my topics, and it was back in that 2008, 2009 time frame when the real estate market was dying in Orange County. These were all pastors, and they were saying, our people are coming to us, about to lose their family, about to lose their houses, about their lives are in ruin, and we don't know what to tell them. Which I thought was a little bit ironic. However, they weren't hypocrites. They were men too, who didn't understand the concept of controlled failure. It's so important. It's so important. So that mental preparation for betrayal, yeah, again, you're not being suspicious necessarily, living that way. It's just, what if this happened? And sometimes when something means the most to you, that what if scenario, what if I lost this? What would I do? Good question. Deep question. Deep question. But very necessary. Very necessary. So I've seen people come through storms before I had them. I had to endure them. And their counsel and their demeanor, sometimes their demise, was helpful for me. It was very helpful because I saw how that could happen. So establishing some security, some certainty, some confidence is so important. I don't like talking about betrayal because it's horrible. It's one of the most horrible things anybody can ever go through. But don't let it destroy you. Yeah, I think it's important. So failure is inevitable. Jobs, marriage, health, somebody you love passes. It's inevitable. Preparation makes it survivable. You got the things we talked about. Mental rehearsals on this. So maybe it's talking about savings, keeping your health in good shape or as good a shape as you can or better shape. Let's just say better. How about that? Your relationships, keep them thriving. Feed them. Cherish them. Let people know how much they mean to you. And then think about your purpose. What's next? What's your why? Preparation makes everything transformative, which meaning thriving a lot of times happens because of the failure. It does. What lesson did I learn that I would not have learned if I hadn't been through this? Many times it creates the conflict. Sometimes you can't get through it till you get in it. It's important. Controlled failure doesn't mean you avoid a crash of any kind. It means you walk away stronger. You walk away stronger. Life is no mystery. It's guaranteed to give you challenges you don't expect. Either the challenge itself or the timing of it. So preparation is the choice you make now. Fail safely, but fail forward. Fail in a way that sets you up not just to survive, but to thrive. Yeah, and that's the aftermath. Storm's coming. You're going to get through it, but afterwards, you're going to be in a better spot. We're going to face it. I don't like to say that, but we all know we are. I don't think I've said anything revolutionary about the fact that it's not a matter of if, it's when. But don't meet them unprepared because you're going to come out broken or blindsided. Have a plan. Go through these exercises. What am I afraid of? What if? Learn from others. And that way you'll have a steady head and a steady hand when something happens. Failure's not the end of the story. It's just that chapter where you got to prove you were ready. All right? Deep topic, guys. Deep topic. Several of you reached out with similar requests. I hope I covered what you were talking about. If not, let me know. We'll give it another shot or go from a different angle. So, control failure. What can I control? And what do I need help with? So important. Thanks so much for hanging out. Please hit me up, david@otalks.com or david@otalks.com. I read them all. I respond. And we'll keep going. Got some good stuff on the way. I'm already looking at 2026. I am hitting the road. And the road sometimes is just 10 miles away. I've got a week coming up where I have an O-Talk every day that week. It's fantastic. I'm trying to do them just in the mornings now. However, if you need me at night, I can work that in. And then weekends, any faith-based stuff on the house. On the house. That's giving back. I can't outgive him. That's for sure. Thanks so much. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for hanging on. But most of all, thanks for O-Talking with Dave. Giddy up.